Hello,
Hello,
welcome.
hello, hello.
Hey,
Welcome. Hello,
yes,
Vincent.
hello,
Hi.
Vincent. Yeah, so before I show everybody's name, I show a banner that is officially linked. So in case you, actually, I would put it up later because like we don't have a lot of viewers at the moment. So I'll just let everybody see our beautiful name first. Yay! Hello. Yeah, so I'll put up the link again later, like just if someone want to follow our notes and want to see what we are going to talk about today.
Ooh.
And yeah, so first of all, it's I think it's second episode after the EuroPython, and we feel refreshed, I hope. And Vincent, did you join the EuroPython?
Yeah, I was speaking, but also like hanging. Like the Discord was like pretty fun because of like discussions happening and stuff. So there was like a long discussion about OR tools that I was hanging out with. It was big though. Like it was like a pretty massive online event. That's one of the things I did remember from that.
Yeah. It's a bit like it's very crazy that like all the channels are like overwhelmingly like
Yeah, I
I'm not
mean,
a fan of that. But
no, like Discord is great, but it's like six lights blinking at the same time, kind of a feeling at some point.
Yes. What do you think of the registration bot?
The registration part.
Yeah, the registration bot, the one that the one because Chuck did the bot for the registration part.
I
So as soon as you go in and there is like the registration desk, and you just put your name and your ticket number, and you just in.
So I was a speaker, so I think I was
yeah,
able to
be on
avoid
board
that
before that.
process.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it certainly like it does like now that you're telling me that's a bot, I mean that makes complete sense. I noticed there was like this one person like making the exact same like sentence every single time except for this one ID, so that makes sense that that's a bot. Hadn't seen it, but I can imagine you need one for because it was like what 1,000 people or something like that.
I think we sold around 1,000 tickets. Yeah, I think it was more than
Yeah,
1,000 tickets actually, like 1,500 maybe.
yeah, like
Uh,
well. But 1,000 already is enough to warrant like automation at some point. Like 1,500 warrants it more. But yeah,
yeah, it's for like
pretty big.
25 of us, I think, for like the volunteers organizing it.
Yeah,
So originally there was a system that like okay we asked them to come on like earlier and then we just like take turn to be there. Like people just like grab the ticket and you have to press the emoji so that you claim like helping that person. But like and then I was like okay if I have time I'll write a board because I don't want to be there and do that. So
well, that makes
yeah.
sense. I mean, the whole point of programming is to automate the boring stuff, right? So it's like if you can automate anything, that's always a good investment to make. If you can work for an hour and that saves you like 5 minutes every 1 minute, then you win your time back quite quickly.
So speaking about online conferences, we do have an online conference with us now. Actually, happening now is PyCon Africa. So yeah, just want to give them a shout out because I'm a big supporter for them, and I really love that. I've joined like a Zoom call with like the organizers and the speaker, last week, and it's very good. The vibe is good, and yeah. So Vincent, are you speaking at PyCon Africa as well, or?
So I have been talking to some African Rasa users lately because like it's pretty hard to get word embeddings in Zulu. Like there's just languages that are just a bit more rare. But I've found some. So like I am in conversation with some people there. I just didn't like I knew there was going to be a conference. I just didn't know it was exactly now. But I mean, Africa is a giant continent. It's
Yeah.
there's sure to be like many great Python developers there. So this sounds like something I might attend next year, if it's virtual
And,
again.
and Chuck is throwing a data science for beginners workshop this Sunday, isn't it, Chuck?
Yeah, it's this Sunday. We are running a data science for beginners workshop. We have actually done that before in PyCon US. Well, at the beginning of everything, it was beginning of all this craziness, and we planned to fly to US and do that, but it become online, and then we just decided, okay, well, then we can do it like it everywhere online. Then. And PyCon Africa, originally I was really planned to attend anyway, but now since it goes online and the organizing team can all like full on to work on it, so we can just like prod the workshop there. And it's amazing that like so many African students apply to join the workshop. I was we was panicking a bit before, and was like giving a shout out, like, okay, everybody, please help. All my friends who know data science and Python, please help to be a mentor. And now we got a lot of reply. Thank you so much. If any of you who are watching has helped me out, and and I hope it will be great. I hope they can learn a little bit and kind of like spread it, right? So like I hope that if we the idea is to have like Django Girls. It's like you have people who learn from the workshop, they become mentor for the next workshop, or even like in the future they could organize their own workshop. So yeah, that's the idea.
Cool.
Yeah. So okay, I think let's move on to the next, because this one is not like call for action or anything, but this one is call for action, because like I think last week I talked about the deadline of the global PyData global CFP is was last Sunday, but it has been extended to the 16th.
Yay!
So, yay! And also, I think they were also calling for reviewers. I don't know whether it's still, because the deadline was also last Sunday, but I don't know whether they have extended that as well. So I don't know. But have a look. If you still have some good ideas, please still submit. And we did actually have a joke about like, because I think Vincent has seen this before as well. Like, it's about James Powell giving like a talk about Steve Python.
I'm not aware of that particular meme, but I am aware of James Powell.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So like, well, if you want to, be part of this party with James Powell, who's like crazy he's very good at giving like live coding, and like all of his talk is doing crazy stuff. Maybe Vincent can give you another like a little bit idea of what his talk is.
So James knows, I would argue, a suspicious amount of the Python and C Python and like even operation system level details. And what he typically tries to do is go like way too deep in half an hour. And that makes you realize, like every time you go to one of his talks, you realize, that's another thing that Python makes easier for you. And understanding why, like that's what I always like about his talks. Like, do drink a coffee before you go in, like, and they do go like very in depth. But he has a knack for like showing, like, hey, this is another thing that Python automates for you. That's always fun to watch.
Yeah. So please join the party if you want to experience this, coffee needed talk. So and another CFP is Pyjamas. So yay! And so actually Pyjamas is a conference that, well, the idea of Pyjamas was growing from last year, a discussion about because we are a bit sick of need to wake up at 8 or 7 and to get to the conference venue and drink lots of coffee. And what if we have a conference that you are in your pajamas and you're in your room? And so at that time, an online conference was not a thing that everybody does. So we decided to, create an online conference. And now everything go online, good or bad. Like, good thing is that we learn a lot from other conferences as well. We try to have it in a cozy winter time for some people, but for some people it will be like summertime. But our Brazilian friends, they're like, yeah, it's okay, in December it works. And it will be in the December, the 5th of December. So actually I can show you the home page. So it's 5th of December is 100% online, 100% run by volunteers.
Yeah.
And we also have this, I think Vincent will be interesting in this, like, community track organizers. We are looking for people who run a small program for their community, like on this community track with us, that it will be, it could be anything that your community want. It could be even a talk, in your own language. You can have like, a call for CFP for your own speaker, but it has to be in your own language. And it would be interesting to have like Python talks in Dutch, I think. And then like, so you can have that. And like, we can have a block of, Dutch talks, and that would be great. And
Portuguese and Italian and other languages.
Japanese, I mean, like the Japan community is very active in EuroPython, so it's really great.
Okay.
I would love for there to be an Esperanto track. I'm just saying, like, that would be amazing.
Yeah, that's the idea. We want to include everybody. So we want community participation. So that's also a CFP.
Oh, that's cool. I saw this pajamas thing, like, I think for the first time last night. And I was kind of wondering, like, hey, it feels like this is just like every event that has now gone online, but this was like the original online event then for Python.
Yes.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Actually, there was an addition in Brazil last year, because when we chat about that, so one of them is like Brazilian, and then they bring it back to bring it back home, and they have a online 24 hours Portuguese talks for like 24 hours streaming. That's amazing. So we try to bring this global, and we include everybody we could include. And also, again, we have call for proposal like we do. So yeah, it's 24 hours. So we need a lot of people like from different regions. Otherwise, someone have to give their talk in the middle of the night.
I'll definitely have a look. This is a cool idea.
Yeah,
and you need cool pajamas to present on it though.
And we also think about pajamas related or like pillowcase, whatever, like swag. But
you can actually buy a Python pajama. That's the end.
Yeah, the thing is because at the beginning we was thinking about like how can we deliver this swag like to people, and we actually learned from your Python that we can have a merch store that people can buy their own like Python logo pajamas, and maybe pajamas logo, pillowcase, any like blanket or whatever that they could, have it.
And we'll send you stickers as well. So
yeah,
and then you can have a person in the morning who's eating a bit of pie wearing pajamas.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. That's it.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the idea. So yeah, please, I have included this. I should have put the link there again. Okay, let me go there and show the link again. So but it will cover our faces. Okay, I will do it like maybe in a bit. Okay, so it's not really in a good timing. So this is Lei's announcement.
Yes, so it's just news. So PyBam, it's basically a library to deal with batteries. I don't necessarily understand how it does that well, but they just joined NumFocus, and that's the news. So another cool project, another cool open source project joining NumFocus. And on more NumFocus news, we also have that they are looking for a developer advocate. It's not necessarily Python news this time, but since we're all developer advocates here, I thought we could have a chat about this. So yeah, I think they're looking for someone who has like more than 3 years experience with playing with the libraries they're NumFocus affiliated. Then some other like minimal things, but it can be a remote position as well as a local one, an in-person one, and then that would be in Texas in the US. I don't know. I thought it was quite cool, the idea of working from NumFocus as a developer advocate. Imagine that.
It is. Well, one thing that's kind of unique here is that you get to represent open source, open source projects in general, and not necessarily a company, which is interesting about this. That's definitely kind of interesting in this one. And I can also imagine you're probably going to end up doing some open source work in off time. Like if you're not at a conference, you're probably going to talk to people about documentation stuff, things that matter. So I've tweeted this thing around a couple of times. It's definitely a cool role, I would say.
And also you can work with the co-developers of your favorite project. Like I love a lot of NumFocus for projects. So I'm thinking one of the perks is like you got to talk to all the maintainers and work with them, and you can just the idea of working with them is cool. So
so there you go. If you're a developer advocate and looking for a job, that's the job. That's the dream job.
Yeah, but I've seen this post for a while, so so please go ahead and apply.
Yeah, I think that's from like the mid of June, but they just sent it again on their newsletter. Last week. So
what was? Is there any like phrase to say that? Like the where is your oyster? No, what's that called? Like the opportunities is yours. I don't know. Yeah.
Seize the day, kind of.
Yeah, grab it.
Go for it. I think is what people say.
Go for it. Yeah.
Okay. We want you.
Oh, by the way, if you're new to, if you love open source, if you're new to, like, you haven't been a developer advocate before, but you have, some coding background, you want to become a developer advocate, I'm happy to like give you some tips or anything. You can find me on Twitter and see what I can help you.
And Chuck is a great mentor. She's been mentoring me on being a developer advocate, so I can testify for it.
And okay, so now is the Raspberry Pi section. I would say I just saw these things popping up on my timeline, so I really can't ignore them because there are actually Raspberry Pi keyboard for Japanese. I was like, really? And just talking about keyboard, I always struggle to get keyboards. Like even I'm a Mac user, so getting a keyboard for Mac is difficult. Like all my friends got really cool mechanical keyboard, and I'm really jealous. But the layout is always for Windows, because Mac you got those special function buttons, and I think you have to kind of somehow map it if you're building your own mechanical keyboard. So it's either I spent a lot of time to figure that out, or I just buy a keyboard from Apple. So. It's a bit sad, but having a keyboard that is inclusive and you can use it in your language, I think is a very cool idea. And Raspberry Pi, I think they're doing it right. They have all these different Portuguese and Nordic, it's really good.
Cool. I'm a pretty big Raspberry Pi nut, if I'm honest. I've got these sensors in on average 1.5 of these in every room in my house at the moment. So definitely Raspberry Pi is cool stuff.
Yeah, I don't know whether I can kind of have my coding environment purely on Raspberry Pi.
The trick is, so what I've actually I cannot confirm or deny that I've had a client who I served using this. Because you can do IDE stuff from the browser at some point. So, if you've got a Jupyter, you got a big VM running somewhere, you got your Jupyter Lab thing running there, you've got your Visual Studio Code you can host there as well. It's all browser-based nowadays. So with just this thing, you can do quite a bit of dev work, actually. And this thing doesn't get as hot as the average MacBook by a margin. Which is also a benefit.
Oh yeah, talking about overheating, I always experience that, and I have actually a fan on my desk now. It's cooling me down, but sometimes I have to cool the computer down using it. So
I've got this guy.
Yeah, it's really hot in Netherlands this year. All my colleagues are like, "Oh, I can't work. I have to work in the middle of the night because it's so hot," and it's not fun.
It's a thing.
There is a heat wave coming through Europe everywhere now.
Yeah.
So Dublin is just cloudy and clammy. It's lovely.
It's extreme. And okay, last thing about Raspberry Pi, we have a you can build a Google Assistant with a Pi. Well, that's something I want to try. Maybe if I get a gift like this for Christmas. Oh, you have it!
This is version 1 though. This is version 1.
Okay. Yeah, that would be great. I have never got anything like Google Home or Alexa or anything. So
one thing that I will say that's definitely nice about this compared to the normal Google Home is this one actually has a button that you can press, and only then will it listen. You can configure it that way. So there's none of that awkward, hey, I mentioned Jack Johnson, and suddenly music starts playing in the background. Which is
and also it's if you're like Mark Smith who 3D printer and print stuff, you can print a case for it, and design your own.
Oh yeah, there's a huge community for I've got a laser printer shop nearby. There's a huge community for these sorts of things.
Yeah, I could print a very cute case for it, so it's not as boring as the Google Home or Alexa. So
a teddy bear.
I can stuff the component in a teddy bear. Oh my god, that's creepy now. Okay.
I don't know if that will be kind of. you can do some really weird pranks with that, but there's indeed nothing stopping you. The only thing I would take care of is the battery, because you need a pretty big one if you actually want to have it do Wi-Fi all the time, etc.
Oh yeah, right. Okay, so I think that's all the news. So what I gotta do is I gotta switch back to this, and then for people who just joined, I'll just show the link for a few seconds, and then we'll start talking with Vincent. So so maybe first of all, introduce yourself. We have been talking to you for such a long time, and people still don't know who is this Vincent? And it seems like he's good, he's fun, he's knowledgeable, but who is he?
Okay, well, so my name's Vincent. I've been doing data stuff for a while. I've in a past life I've done tons of stuff. So You might have heard from me from the Amsterdam PyData. Used to be the chair of that. I have this blog, Coding.io. You might have heard from me from that. I also make some educational videos for the Spacey project. It's something I do on the side. You might have seen me from that. Some of my talks at PyData are also quite popular, especially talks about how linear models beat deep learning models. They tend to do quite well these days. But my main sort of thing that I do nowadays is I work at Rasa as a research advocate. So what I try to do is like all the fancy, cool things that our researchers come up with. We like it if our core users also understand why these things work in a certain way. So my job is to make sure that people understand NLP. That's kind of what I do. Which is a gig I did not anticipate, if I'm being very honest. So it's sort of DevRel, but it's also sort of research at the same time. So there's like this weird little intersection in that sense. But I've been doing this for half a year and having a blast.
Yeah, that's actually great because like I think I've chatted with them before that like I think I was your competitor. I tried to apply for this post, but I think maybe there was somebody with a more solid research background, which I'm not. I'm just I would consider myself a hacker than a researcher. So, but that's good. Like good that everything works and everything's working well. And so how do you get into Python then? Like I know that you was working as a data scientist, but like how do you get into it?
Like I think like way back in the day, but when Udacity sort of just got started, I was part of like that very first Stanford Python course, and that's where I kind of learned Python. And back in those days, I was trying to learn R, Python, and JavaScript at the same time, which I can, in hindsight, tell you is not a really good idea. Like trying to learn one first is probably better. So I learned myself a little bit of Python, but then I actually did more R for a while. So yeah, I knew a little bit of Python, but most of my work, like back in those days, like 80% of my work was R. It's just that, after a couple of years, people ask like, hey, can you put that model in production now? And then back in those days, R wasn't really that good for that. So then I was moving a little bit closer and closer to Python stuff. And then I noticed, hey, in Amsterdam, it'd be kind of nice if we had a really good algorithm and science Python kind of thing. And you looked at YouTube and PyData was a thing. So then I had a colleague called Giovanni, and he was reaching out to Leah and Jim from NumFocus. And at the same time, I came across Ian Oswald in a bar in Budapest.
Yeah.
It was really random. It was like the same weekend, and like,
yeah,
and it was random for a couple of reasons because I was at this BI conference, and Ian Oswald was there, Wes McKinney was there, one of the core developers from dplyr, which is this huge R package. And I was there, and like we ended up being like sort of the main speakers, and ended up getting to know each other quite well that evening. But that's kind of how the ball got rolling. Then I started doing the PyData thing, and because you're sort of doing PyData, you also meet tons of interesting people. You get more exposed to all the Python stuff. Then you start building some tools yourself, and that's how the ball sort of gets rolling. I've been doing less R nowadays, though, but essentially it's just exposure to PyData, I think, is the main way I've accumulated knowledge about Python, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and by the way, like Ian, like we had him like here, I think a few months ago. Like people who are curious can check like who is this Ian, but
Yeah.
So, we had him here. We hosted him. We had him here. We hosted him. Yeah.
You can go to check our archive and you'll find it.
Just Google it.
No, it's pretty fun. It's like back in the day when PyData Amsterdam just got started. I think London just did its second year. Berlin just did its first year. So like, I would be communicating with Ian and Maddie quite a bit just to make sure, like, hey, what are we actually doing? Like, we would want the Amsterdam crowd to still have something unique and the Berlin crowd to have something unique. And so I know both of them quite well. And I think they're still involved with PyData to some extent as well, right? If I'm not mistaken. I think Ian's still around, Maddie's still around.
Yeah, Maddie, I think he's still working on it. Ian tried to step down a bit because he's super busy with his personal stuff, and so but like we already have really good chair in London, so that's fine.
That's true. Like that's the same thing happened in Amsterdam. Like at some point Giovanni stepped down. Like the guy has like 5 kids, 6 I think. Like so at some point, if you want to spend time with your family, fair game, like go ahead and do that. But also for me, like after you've done it for like 4 to 5 years, it's a good moment to like give the torch to some other people, and they'll take it and give it another spin and do something cool with it. It's the way it's supposed to go, I think.
It can be a bit challenging to find that person to pass the torch to, but
But no, It happens
Well,
with PyCon
also,
UK. They have to find a director. That's the problem. Like, because Danielle stepped down, and yeah.
well, one thing that helps here, I think, so it depends on how you organize it, but one lucky thing we had in Amsterdam, at least, is we had, there were, of course, many volunteers from different companies, but there were 2 big companies who are also invested in this. So Booking is one of the bigger recruiters of Amsterdam as far as data science goes. So they naturally have this incentive to say, hey, if we have some employees in that committee, that's like good for us. And the same thing happened with my previous employer, that they were a consultancy. And if they could, ask their clients to brag about how good the consultants were at like an open source event, they wouldn't mind. So then it helps to have companies in that sense invested in a way, because it keeps incentives kind of aligned, and you get a fresh batch every now and again. But that's, I guess, the luck we've had in Amsterdam. It's been easy to find those people.
Yeah, that's really good. It's not like common to find like companies who want to engage so much in the community. So, yeah. Okay, so I think the next question is Lei's question. Lei wants to ask you.
Yes. Well, because like it's quite easy to see that you have loads of projects everywhere. Like I saw one of these days I opened Twitter and I saw someone that just posted that the best moment of their day was when they saw that there was like a new post from your blog. I was like, oh, that's so sweet.
That was really sweet, but like I remember that tweet because there was this, I think it was this guy who said, "Oh, it's the greatest thing to wake up to," and then I woke up to that tweet, which was really meta. Like, that was... But no, that was super nice. Like, I love hearing that people find it useful. That's the reason you make it.
Yeah, because that was going to be the question now. So considering you have Come.io and Dear Me, Dear Me README is one of my favorite actually.
Well, thanks. Well, so. Let me first wait until you ask the full question, actually, because I feel like responding even though the question's not been asked yet.
Okay, so yeah, the question was, what's the motivation between them? Because like they're not, the thing that I noticed the most is that they're not only like coding based. They're websites for you to go and do stuff. They're fun. They're engaging. So what's the motivation behind that?
So there's a couple of stories there, but I think. Like, why would you start an open source project? Well, hopefully because you have a problem that it will solve and that it's fun to do. So in that sense, like making a website or making an open source project, the only difference is the website, you don't push the PyPI so that people can download it. It's really similar in lots of ways. So then the thing with Dear Me email, I mean, there was this portion of my life where I had this burnout thing. So then I figured, hey, if I'm going to sit behind a laptop, I have to build stuff that's kind of more meaningful. And then I figured, hey, I would love to have this service where I could just set myself an email and get it back in a month. Like, that's a cool thing. I had a buddy of mine in high school had a teacher who would do the same thing, but for 5 years. So like the final year in high school, the whole point was that you would write yourself a letter, you would stamp it, give it to your English teacher, and then the English teacher would send that to you after you've graduated like 5 years later down the line. And I'm gonna think, hey, there's something really therapeutic about that. Now, I don't think I'm gonna do 5 years. Like, that's gonna be a really long cron job. But like once a month, I think, is kind of nice. So that's how that ball got rolling. But the whole point of that project, just like most open source things, is I try to put it up in a way that the odds of me ever needing to touch it is like 0. So it's all set up in such a way that the odds that I ever need to fix something, that's pretty much 0, which means that if I'm done with something, it's pretty done. That's the idea. And the Dear Me email thing, in particular, I think is rather precious because I think there's like 12 people a month. Like, I've maybe dozens of people using that app, but it's perfect because of that. Because there's like a small group of people who think it's useful, and that small trickle of people. I mean, that's, I don't know. I pay like $20 a year for the domain, but that's enough. Like, it's a nice little project. I make use of it. Other people find it useful too. That's enough. That's great.
But what if you come back with a feature request, then you have to maintain it?
I just say no. Like, I think if I'm making a service that's like for free and it's helping a couple of people, but I don't feel too bad if someone comes up to me and says, "Hey, change it," and then you can just say no. For open source projects that sort of people are relying on, it's a bit different, but even there, you're like, it's volunteer work, right? So you should at all times, for all my hobby projects, it's kind of one of my rules. Like, I should at every single point in time be able to say no. Like, if it's an open source project and I have to say yes to feature requests, then it should be my job, not my hobby. That's a line I try to draw.
That's true.
But it should be, even for open source projects, you should also feel free to say no if you think it's a bad idea, right? So it's fair game.
True. What about the atmosphere, the idea behind Camcode.io?
Right, so that was a fun one. That also kind of came from a point in time where I kind of felt like, hey, like I remember what burnout kind of felt like, and I also recognize that a lot of people sort of. This is one of those moments where I came up with a name, and then I figured I like the name so much I should build it. It's really silly, but I noticed for a lot of people that learning a new skill is really stressful, and there's something about that I really don't like. Because it, especially programming, is reasonably empowering. I would say, like, it opens up your mind in lots of ways. You can actually build apps and stuff. So, like, it's really weird if you have a great idea that sort of learning the skill to make that cool thing is something that causes you insane amounts of anxiety. Like, that's just fundamentally wrong, failure in education, etc. So I figured, how about I just try to make a couple of videos, and also here, only when I feel like it, where just very calmly, I just try to explain a concept in a 1 or 2 minute video. And then after you've watched 7 of those, probably you've learned quite a few things, and that maybe that's just enough. I don't like a lot of these educational platforms where they try to tell you that these are must-have skills and you have to pay for a certificate and all of that nonsense, right? It makes people insecure. So I figured that is a better avenue sort of pursuing. And I kind of figured, hey, I should start building that. And I think it will be nice to see that kind of like more as a blog. Like I don't feel like starting a company for this because I think a blog is just nicer. You keep the incentives aligned. And also around the time that I figured out that I wanted to make that, I also got this job offer from Rasa, which was pretty sweet. So this just aligned kind of nicely. And basically what I'm doing is every weekend, if I've got a couple of hours to spare, I just figured, hey, what do I want to maybe put on there? Whenever I feel like it, I just make a couple of videos and that's it. The entire website is just a for loop, by the way. That's also one of the things that's amazing to me. It's just a couple of like YAML files, and there's just one for loop generating the HTML, and that's it. As far as maintenance goes, it's nothing. It's amazing.
Yeah, I have the same thing for because I put all my videos on my website. I have the same thing, like have a YAML file and then generate with Jackal, and it's just generate it. And
Jackal. That's the Ruby thing, right?
Yeah, it's similar to other things. Maybe use
Pelicano. I think Pelican is the one for Python. I think.
I read the Pelican docs and I kind of went, this looks fair, but I want to customize it myself, so I just replaced Pelican with a for loop. But I have used Pelican. My old blog was hosted on Pelican though. Like, it's a pretty cool project, but it's. But that's how most of my hobby projects sort of work. So also the Comper thing I did like last week. It was just, hey, there should be a project that does this, and it's fun to make. So I'll do it during my holiday. Like I spend 2 hours a day making that thing, and that's perfect. Like that's enough. I think the word enough here is kind of the main goal.
I think I've asked you like similar question before, but like you seem to like always have good ideas, and like and then it's like
my girlfriend will disagree instantly.
I remember your last like you talk about you using what's that like lambda function to beat your girlfriend in the card game or something.
Okay, I will actually, in hindsight, I will definitely admit that was a bad idea. Because it was really okay. It was actually I was doing this with like a colleague buddy of mine. We had the most fun trying to like over engineer this super silly problem. In essence, we came down to the fact that yes, we run this algorithm on 5,000 cores, but it converged in like a second. So we didn't need any of those cores. Like that was the main lesson there. So one thing there, like that's a thing that we did at the previous company, which I think is a good thing. I don't know if they still do that, but like I do think it should be cool to just experiment around, right? And I think one thing that I like to think I'm okay at is just exploring lots of ideas and just picking one that's reasonable. Because you have this sort of weird brainstorming phase, and what I try to do is every morning I take like a long walk, and then I have like 10 ideas. And if I still have the same idea in my mind like 2 weeks later, then I know it's a pretty good one, and then maybe I should do something with it. But that said, like I do want to acknowledge here that I think most people generally just have really good ideas. Like having a good idea is one thing, but bootstrapping that idea into something that you can demo is like another thing. And I think that's more the part where people have a bit of trouble. Because you can have a great idea for an interactive visualization, but D3 is kind of tricky. You can have a really cool idea for a Python library, but performance is still a thing. Like I think that's more the hard part. Like coming up with something amazing is great, but like making the demo version of something, that's usually the trickier part.
Yeah. So is that your idea to give out strip waffle in PyData Amsterdam?
Actually, no. That's also a consequence of a joke. So what happened there was,
And they all.
yeah, no, like to be honest, just to give I think humor does bring you places. So it's one thing that happened, for example, is during the Spacey conference. I went up to we went to a bar after the Spacey in Real Life conference. It was a great conference, had a blast, good speakers. But then the bar was really packed, so we went to another bar. So I went up to Ines when we walked up to this new bar and I said, "Huh, this bar is way more spacey." And really bad, corny joke, right? But I do like to think it's one of those things that made Matt and Ines go, this guy might be good on YouTube. Like it was just, it's silly moments like that typically that make a difference. Now the stroopwafel thing, essentially what happened there. So we were looking for different reasons for people to sponsor. I think if you can assign like a special name to a sponsor, if PyData Amsterdam, it's always a nice thing. So you can have like the drink sponsor, the food sponsor, and like that's better than just being a bronze sponsor, so to say. And at the same time, I was also sort of looking for ways maybe to get like companies on board that don't have as much money, right? So some of the startups were like really interested in like giving us a little bit of extra. So what happened was, I think it was a 3D printing company. I forget the name, Shapeways maybe, but eventually their CTO sent me an email, to my private email saying, well, all 4 of my Python people want to go to your conference. Obviously, you're doing something right. If I spend all of their educational budget, I still have a couple of €100 extra. Can you do something with that? And then I basically said, oh my God, we'll make you a stroopwafel sponsor. That'll be amazing. Kind of as a joke. But then the guy said, that's the best idea ever. You should totally go for it.
But the problem is that you didn't print the name on the stroopwafel, did you? Because we can't remember the name, so...
Well, so the thing is, we usually, in this case, we basically just thank them afterwards. But then what happened then was I kind of figured, okay, how many stroopwafels can I buy for, X hundred amounts of dollars? So I went to the person at my office who takes care of this sort of thing. And she goes, well, you actually want me to buy stroopwafels for this amount, corporate rate? And yeah, go ahead. We'll see how many we get. I think we got like half a cubic meter. It came in like one of those forklifts.
It's not good for our health and maybe trigger my diabetes.
There's this one photo of me basically unpacking the boxes, and we had a bit of a logistical issue because we had to get all these stroopwafels because they delivered at the wrong office as well. So we had to get through downtown to get it to the booking office. But the thing is, by this time, Vincent is now the guy who got half a cubic meter of stroopwafels. So obviously it's a tradition now. And that's how people sort of remember it. So every year we do try to sort of look around for a stroopwafel sponsor. And it's kind of one of those silly things, you want every conference to kind of have its own theme. And definitely when I was around, Amsterdam was kind of smoking a pancake. We kind of... Sure, we like talks about state-of-the-art things, but we mostly care about stuff that make people laugh using Python. So the stroopwafel story just really fit well there. But that's really how the stroopwafel thing happened, and basically also started with what I thought was a joke, and then people took it serious.
I think it's really nice. I don't know what we can sponsor here. Maybe tea sponsor or fish and chip sponsor. I don't know.
Well, I don't. Well, one thing so it's funny you mentioned because. I'm gonna get married in September, and Corona.
Congratulations!
Congratulations!
Yeah.
Thanks. But the thing with a wedding nowadays is you cannot have everyone because you don't want to have grandma in a hazmat suit just to keep her safe. That's not going to be good for a wedding vibe. So what we're going to do now is a lot of people are going to watch via the webcam. You can also do a drive-by congratulations if you like. But everyone who's watching via the webcam is going to get stroopwafels sent home, so that then during the celebration and the coffee moment, people can have a stroopwafel. And one thing I will say here, I don't want to stroopwafels are becoming a Vincent brand almost of sorts. But one thing I will say that's kind of amazing about them, they are this lovely little gift that people do tend to remember, and that's kind of the cool thing about this sort of. It's a really typical Dutch thing. So everyone who comes from abroad is kind of this is kind of cute. That's enough, I would say, and that's also what makes it precious. but that's also the story behind the stroopwafels. It's not something amazing. It's just kind of a.
I think it's like that's I would choose that as the best idea like of PyData Amsterdam. I always remember it because of the stroopwafel. So
well, I mean, I kind of prefer to brag about the childcare. Like if I'm being very honest, I think the fact that last year we had a childcare, I think that was totally more badass than the stroopwafels. But I'll take stroopwafel.
I love that Chuck is the one that loves the stroopwafels more.
Well, I will say it adds to the vibe though. Like that, I definitely agree with because it's really silly, but people sort of go home and they sort of say, "PyData Amsterdam was fun. Why? The story about the stroopwafels." But I think it's not just PyData, by the way. I think one of the organizers from like the Dutch Django conference also was like renowned for bringing stroopwafels. And, like it's a Dutch thing, I would argue.
It's a Dutch thing. Yeah, like I remember the best stroopwafel was I think in Utrecht when like there's fresh made ones.
Yeah, those are the best ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think every conference sort of has its own vibe. So I think if you go to Berlin, the odds that you can actually get like really good vegan food is like way higher because it's kind of more of a Berlin thing and people remember that. If you go to London, there's the pub moment and stiff upper lip and they're Brits, so like people like banter.
It's everywhere. Like I just go to drink like too much, but like I always remember the food because for PyCon Italia, the most remarkable thing that I tell everybody is that they have red wine for lunch.
Oh yeah. They also do that in France and Italy in some places, but it's not average if you're from Holland, I would say. Yeah.
I was thinking we could maybe get a pint of top of Guinness for PyCon Ireland next year.
Maybe.
For lunch. Maybe.
One thing.
For lunch. Yeah. Is that Irish?
So one thing to remember here is Guinness is bound to have a data scientist, right? Maybe they sponsor. Just saying. And also, and then you can do, kind of like, hey, we're definitely in Ireland. Guinness is sponsoring, right? I mean, there's
Guinness sponsor, which is Guinness.
Yeah, I mean that's something you should keep in the back of your mind. You can do, and also sponsors really like it if you give them like a little bit more of a personal touch, something that's really fitting, and people always kind of like that. So we had, like last year we had like. Instead, we had a stroopwafel sponsor, obviously, but we also had a ball pit sponsor. So we had this massive ball pit in the middle of the conference, where if you were there with a team, you can have like your team photo taken. And again, this is like one of those really silly things because it's just a ball pit. But suddenly, everyone goes home with a photo of their team in a ball pit, being kids again, and they're going to remember details like that, with the childcare and the great speakers and all that. But that's going to have, gives a great atmosphere. It makes people remember. Another thing that I can really recommend is have a programming challenge. Like that was a huge success, also for the online version this year. So what we have is we'd have like this giant box of Legos. Like we get it on a pedestal, and it's like ridiculously big. Like it's, and there's usually a company, like my previous company was sort of sponsor that, and there would be like an API that you can play with where you would have to give your name and like a solution to a problem, and there'd be like a real time sort of dashboard where we can see who's the winner. And then during the last break, we announced who the actual winner is. Last year, we had like 40 people like starting up VMs just to compete, sending traffic. I think for the PyData thing we did this year that was virtual, we got like 141 million requests. Like I was actually like hosting the server and making sure it didn't die.
Yeah, I saw you there because I was there as well. Like it wasn't as active as I wished, but sorry, go ahead.
No, but stuff like that adds like another dimension to the conference, and that's like especially for the Amsterdam thing. If I'm proud of anything, I think the people who are taking over and adding their own thing, etc. But I like the fact that we've been able to host this chaotic mix. And that's also why I think diversity is kind of something that matters, because it's this chaotic mix of a lot of these talks are about things that are more humorous than necessarily deep learning or something I got to learn from my employer, but still I learned something. So we had like a guy who was like doing analysis on metal lyrics, like doing proper NLP, trying to figure out which words were the most metal and which words were the least metal. And it's like you're not going to apply that in real life, but it's an amazing talk.
I remember you mentioning that when you're talking about people not actually thinking that what they're doing is suitable for a talk.
This guy had to get, so I had to somewhat convince the guy, because in this case, he just wrote a blog post about it, which I just thought was brilliant. But he didn't realize that the blog post was pretty much everything he needed to do the talk. But yeah, like I think a lot of people don't understand that what they can talk about is actually quite meaningful. my most popular talk I've ever done was about linear models.
Yeah. You don't have to have all these like AI convolutional neural networks. Like,
I think if you're going to do too much AI, your talk is literally going to get convoluted.
Yeah, it's like you can't deliver like something that is on a paper that deep within, someone spent 2, 3, 4 years of their life researching it, and you give it in half an hour.
Yeah, and also like.
No.
And also, if I think about the stuff I do over at Rasa, I mean, there's always a choice of what level of detail am I going to go into, and it's I have to understand every level of detail. That's my responsibility. But depending on the audience I have in front of me, I mean, I will do a bit more high level, do a bit more low level, and the artist sort of defines like where on that spectrum you got to be. But for PyData, I mean, you don't have to do like not everyone's a PhD in the audience, right? So you got to keep it to some degree of simple.
Yeah, I'm doing some like reviewing of the talk, and some of them like you can see that it's very academic, and well, we could have some talk of that, like we have to accommodate everybody, but I don't want all the talks to be like that, to be honest. So.
But that's the thing. It has to be this chaotic mix. That's the thing. And I think for global, there's going to be less sort of stroopwafel, smoke and pancake. Like, it's going to be a little bit less of that because you got to, it's got to be relevant to everyone. So less inside jokes in that sense. Like in Amsterdam, I could probably have a talk about like the Dutch soccer team, because for like I think in Eindhoven, I think that the data scientist from the local sports team was like the keynote, and that would totally work for Eindhoven. It was like a really small region in the Netherlands, but it won't work for global, right? Also
tell my friend to explain a little bit more, because he was talking about UK voting and politics, and it's like some people don't understand like how voting works in UK. You have to explain a little bit.
Yeah, true. It's true. Different. There's that, and also I think, so I kind of want to be careful because I'm also in the committee who sort of says I like that talk, I don't like that talk, so I don't want to, gotta be careful what I say here. But personally, I am a bit biased in the other direction. I like it if people talk about stuff that fails. I like it if people say, hey, all these NLP algorithms, they're great, but they only work for English. Like, that's what I like. I like to hear when stuff is failing, because then we can talk about how to fix it. And that's also something that people sometimes forget. They think they have to talk about a success story, but a failure might just be more interesting.
Yeah, people want to learn from what you have experienced, so it should include everything. So I think we do have kind of 15 minutes, 10 minutes-ish. So shall we actually just jump into talking about Rasa? Like, Leis,
sure.
Do you have?
I think we should just
for the viewers, because this week we're gonna just like PyPI highlight, but Rasa is our highlight. So
yes.
Okay.
Usually we have two that we've been playing with, but we both already played with Rasa, and we both have a few questions. So we're just gonna enjoy the fact that you're here.
Go ahead.
Perfect. So first of all, do you want to tell us a little bit more about what Rasa actually is and what it does?
Yeah, so if you want to make a digital assistant, people like to call it chatbot sometimes, then you would like to have some Lego bricks to play with, so to say. Just like if you want to make scikit-learn pipelines, you get some Lego bricks to do machine learning. What Rasa is basically this Python package that gives you the Lego bricks to make a proper digital assistant. That's kind of the idea. It's all nice and open source. If you don't like our tools, you can totally add your own Python ones. I will explain why you should like our tools, though, because there's stuff to like. I think it's going to save you a lot of time. But it's completely open. You can contribute to it. It's like scikit-learn, but for chatbots and digital assistants and that sort of thing. That's the main thing we specialize in. And we have labeling software, and we have enterprise licenses. But the main thing I would argue that's cool here is that it's open source. You can totally check everything that's happening, and it also means that you can customize it towards your use case. Because all these pre-trained embeddings, they're nice, but there's also stuff in them that you don't necessarily like. And also, this allows you to, if you, let's say, want to make a chatbot for Zulu, you can still totally do that. You might need to do a little bit more effort yourself to customize it to your use case, but we totally allow for it. And I think that's a nice little combination, because no chatbot is probably alike. So the customization aspect, I would argue, that's one of the more important reasons why people like our stuff.
Yeah, the fact that it's open source and completely customizable.
Yeah, I'm just going to show Rasa here for people who just maybe tune in or haven't know about Rasa. So I also have I have a question. that I think Lace is also be like interested is that because I see from your tutorial that you could deploy it in in your website, not in like maybe other services. But do you have a hook to deploy it on Discord?
Please.
Oh, I don't know actually if we do. If we don't, you can totally like add a ticket. But I might. Does Discord even allow it? Like that's usually the thing. Like if Discord doesn't allow or doesn't have like a proper API for this sort of thing, if you could go to Event Broker.
Does have an API.
They do, yeah.
Yeah, because there's Discord.py, which is a Python library that lets you kind of skip using the API but use the Python library for kind of the port. So I think it would be great if we can like have a way to hook that up with Discord.py. That would be amazing.
So if it's not there yet, you can definitely add a ticket and like add me in the conversation, like because I can talk to some people. The thing is that sometimes people write their own components. So it might be in this case that someone already wrote sort of the hook for Discord connection to Rasa, but it is not merged into our stuff yet. That could be, like people have done it in the past where there's like, hey, I have this one sort of niche case for my local language. People we use Ep.18, let's say. That does happen.
Yeah, because it would be very cool because Discord also have voice channels, so it would work.
Okay, it definitely seems to me that Discord is big enough for us to consider. So definitely feel free. Feel free to at least add a ticket.
Because we have a project. Me and Jack have a project together on a chatbot that would work like a. I think I actually talked to you about this when we were doing the workshop. About the chatbot that would act like a counselor, like
okay.
And we were discussing about the possibility of deploying that on Discord, and then we started doing a little bit of research, and then we actually couldn't find it, so we thought that would be a good idea to talk to you.
Okay, no, like I would have to sort of like I could do that now, I guess, but like I have to check the issue list on GitHub to make sure whether or not this ticket already exists. One thing I will say, as far as, is there a specific reason why you really want to do this on Discord and not other channels? Because there is nothing stopping you from already doing the work. Like you can already build the bot, so to say, right? Like you don't, even if the Discord integration is not set up yet, you can already try to get your first users maybe to interact with it. I don't know if you've ever used Rasa X yet.
Yes, so we talked about Rasa X, and I actually put the Rasa X link on the notes for everyone. But if you want to talk through it, please do, because it's quite a cool project as well.
So Rasa X is it's not open source, but it is free. Like we would prefer that people don't host it and then try to make money off of it, but it is totally free. You can totally just grab it. But the idea is it's a software that makes the CI/CD a lot easier. So if you push to GitHub, you can automatically deploy your new virtual assistant, but also it helps you with labeling. So one thing that you can already do now is you can sort of pip install Rasa X, and then locally using ngrok, you can say, here's like the user interface, at least on my laptop, and I want to expose that to some other people so they can really start interacting with this assistant. The main idea is that you want to get users involved as quickly as possible, because you are probably going to make a machine learning system on data that you came up with yourself. And typically the data that you come up with yourself is not going to be the language that your end users are going to be using. That's the simple fact. So the risk of overfitting there is like huge. So if you've got the basic thing working yourself, the best thing to do is just get it in front of some other people who've not seen it yet, just to make sure that the assumptions you've made, not just for machine learning, but also conversational design, if they match reality. And in my experience, it rarely matches perfectly in one go. That's my experience so far. I am working on a tutorial on how to get Rasa X working on your Mac. That should be live next week, a 5-minute video. But like that stuff you can already definitely do, even if you don't have an integration with Discord just yet.
Is it a demo here? Because like, is Rasa X a platform that is already have a UI or? Yes.
I might be able to just.
Yeah, can I share your screen as well? Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a very interesting coincidence because I just happened to actually. What I can do is this thing still running? Because I think I've got Rasa X still running. Let's just double check if it is. It's a little bit slow, but what I could do is I'm going to send you a link via StreamYard now.
Yep. Okay, so I just need to go here, yeah?
Yep. And what one thing to be aware of is this is ngrok, so you are talking to a server that is actually running on my machine right now. So I'll also send you the password real quick.
Okay. I hope let me switch to this because I don't know whether people can see the password. It should not be, but I'm just over.
That's definitely the right attitude to have. I think we do mask it, but and also like every time I restart, it's a new password, so it's not the worst thing.
Okay, so let me see if I can share this again.
I was working. Yep, there you go. Okay, so this is Rasa X, and you can see like a demo conversation I just had with it, where the user says hello, 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 hello. If you move your cursor now to like the top right, then you so there's not a button to the left of that. Yep. If you click that, then what you can do is you can generate a link that you can give to like testers. And the idea then is everything that testers will do there is something that the data that you're going to get back. So what you can do is just click generate link. Yep. There you go. So you can copy that to the clipboard. And if you open that up, you do have to open up in a new browser because the cookie. Yeah, because the cookie now thinks that you're still logged in as the main user.
Just 1 second.
So like, or like a private window in Chrome or something like that should work.
Right. Let me. Okay. I have to switch that. So give me a second.
I should also admit, we are going to be talking to like the Hello World demo bot, so so it's not like the most fancy thing. But what you can do is you can type hello, and then we can do something cool. Yep. So if you say hello, it says, hey, how are you? Could you say that you're sad? Just because that's the demo. Yep. And what it should be doing, it gives you a tiger to help cheer you up. But here's the cool thing. Yeah, and here it starts failing because it's not really programmed to handle more than this. But here's the cool thing. If you now go to the other window, we should now see that you just had this conversation. And you should also be able to label and verify that at least the responses so far have been correct.
Okay. Oh. Yeah.
So if now, for example, you discover that it's not normal for a human being to immediately reply, I am sad, which could be the case in real life, right? And you can see what people do write instead.
Right. Okay. So I think, sadly, we are running out of time, but I can totally see what you mentioned. I totally get the idea.
The main thing is like, yes, we do tons of cool machine learning and stuff, and all that stuff's great. But if you're going to do like digital assistant, the main thing that's probably going to go wrong is this part. Your users are probably going to come up with sentences you did not come up with. And the easier you close that feedback cycle, the better. That's the main lesson.
That's really good. And I think a lot of us would love to know more. So where can we find you? Like, are you going to any conference, or is it any like, I know that there's a forum for Rasa, right? So
yeah,
how can people find you?
I'm on all the social platforms except Facebook. No, so like Twitter, my name is Fishnets88. That was a nickname I had in college, and I can't change it now. You can find me, Vincent Warmerdam, on LinkedIn. You can ask me anything. We have a forum on Rasa. I'm called Koning there, but my name's Vincent from Rasa. If you ask around, people will point you to me. You'll find me. This video on how to pip install this whole Rasa X thing should be up next week. And if people have any questions whatsoever, they can just reach out to me. Also, if they have questions about stroopwafels, that's also.
And Pokemon that we didn't get time to cover, but Pokemon as well.
That's also a joke that went horribly wrong.
I didn't want to clear the air this time. No. You're gonna carry this with you for a bit longer.
I like you know how you have these meme lists that like one meme like. That photo is now part of like several meme lists. Like we've entered a new chapter. It's part of history now.
It's the picture that justifies why he is a Pokemon addict. That's fair to say.
I played the video game when I was 10, right? That's the last time I did anything with it. But anyway.
Okay. So, yeah, it's really a pleasure to have you. Really good. And we learned a lot about Rasa as well. That's a bonus. And so I would post also like Vincent's social media the Twitter and stuff in the description. If people want to keep on the conversation, you can do that. And yeah, and I think that's this week. And next week will be a special edition because Lace and I will be abroad. And we would actually do the program in the same space at the first time.
So, it's gonna be podcast Wi-Fi connection edition.
Yeah, we'll see if it works or not. So yeah, it's just an announcement that next week it will be different, and if it works, then Lace and I will be sitting next to each other and streaming. But if not, then please forgive us. It may be technical issues.
So be prepared for anything from a 10-minute episode to no episode at all, or to a super cool episode. So you never know.
Yeah, so I think that's it, and hope to see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And thank you, Vincent, again. Thank you very much. It's always
No worries. This is my first interview. Super happy to do it.
Bye.
Bye.